up, Taiwan? I'm Jeremy Olivier with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. A bad day for markets in Asia. Stocks plunged as investors sold shares, fearing a recession after U.S. President Donald Trump's massive tariff announcement. Tiffany Wong has more.
Down, down, down. Markets across Asia plummeted on Monday as investors fear a global recession after U.S. President Donald Trump announced heavy tariffs on 180 countries last week. Among those hit the hardest, Asian countries. Taiwan's TAIEX had its worst day on record, closing under 20,000 points after a nearly 10% drop. Japan's Nikkei triggered a circuit breaker after dropping 8% in the morning, but closed at 7%. And the Shanghai and Hong Kong indexes also dropped in their first day of trading since the tariffs announcement, with the Hang Seng plunging a whopping 13% after a long weekend. As investors panicked, Trump shrugged off concerns.
Is there pain in the market? At some point, you're unwilling to tolerate this idea of a Trump put. Is there a threshold?
I think your question is so stupid. I think it's I don't want anything to go down, but sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something.
Trump's aides said that over 50 countries have sought talks with the White House to eliminate the tariffs. Taiwan's government has also responded, seeking to appease the U.S. after Trump slapped a 32% tariff on its exports. And its financial regulatory body also implemented temporary measures ahead of Monday's market opening, including massive limits on short selling, an attempt to keep traders from trying to profit from the uncertainty.
台湾证券交易所呼吁投资人给予我国的企业、政府信心，台湾产业的韧性，赋予我国政府的权力的资源，必能充分因应全球局势的挑战。短期市场的波动应回归基本面的理性评估，审慎面对近期台股震荡的走势。
Despite the sharp fall, people in Taipei were optimistic that the TAIEX's historic plunge would just be a brief fluctuation after the tariffs.
股票本来就是会涨涨跌跌啊，也是因为有这样的政策才会在股票上面做反应，只是我觉得这不会是一个长期的状况了。
这个就是要看一个就是它的趋势了。我想说，因为 全世界的趋势都是这样的。那如果我们现在面对这个问题的话，我们政府的因应作为是什么？我觉得这是比较重要的。
But based on the dismal market performance on Monday, it's clear that many investors are worried about the economy. And if the market continues sinking, their worst fears may become reality. Andy Shi, Justin Wu, Leon Lian, Rick Glowert, and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
For more on the fallout in regional markets, especially in Hong Kong and Taiwan, Chris Gorn spoke with Hong Kong-based financial analyst Gary Ng of Natixis.
Well, there's no sugarcoating it, Gary. It was a massacre out there today in Asia's stock markets, with every major index in the region seeing major losses, some in the double-digit percentages. What's your initial take on what you're seeing?
Well, I would say that the reaction hasn't really been a very big surprise to most of the investors, but it's just the scale of the tariff has been much larger than originally expected, of which the market may have been too optimistic before. So I think this is why we do see a lot of investors, they are turning towards the more risk-adverse approach, just trying to shield itself from tariff. So I think this is why we see money flowing into some of the Asian currencies, such as the yen, and also buying up the US Treasury as well as a safe haven.
You know, two of the biggest losers in stocks today were Taiwan's TAIEX, which fell nearly 10%, and in Hong Kong, where you are, the Hang Seng Index lost over 13%. So why do you think that these two markets in particular were hit so hard?
Well, some of the sectors are really the major victims of Trump's policy on tariff. And of course, for the case of Taiwan, it is really a tech story that Taiwan has a very high reliance on U.S. export. We are talking about around 15% of Taiwan goods exported to the U.S. Every year, which is the second largest, right below Vietnam in the region. And once we see all these policies being kicked in, even though we do see some exception in semiconductors, but a lot of smaller firms in Taiwan may still face this risk of the supply chain reshuffling, which there's uncertainties on whether they can export to the U.S. as usual. And if we move a bit towards Hong Kong, it is a financial story that even though the banking sector is not directly affected by tariff, but banks are very related to this macro story on economic growth. So if we do see a recession globally triggered by tariff, it's possible to see this shrinking net interest margin and also worsen asset quality in bank sector. But of course, for the case of Hong Kong, one extra point that we can see here is really this connection with China, that if there is any further escalation or retaliation happen between the US-China competition, the impact will simply be much higher than some of the other regional peers, such as Singapore.
Given all the panic, what do you think investors should be looking at as they try to navigate this?
I think the most important point in the next 1 or 2 weeks is really about whether the U.S. will soften its stance on tariff to negotiate with other countries. Because I think if we do not really see that, it means that the U.S. is probably quite serious in using all this tariff measure to really forcefully bring back certain manufacturing capacity back to the country, even though it may make zero economic sense. So under that scenario, it's possible to see the global economic growth worsening further than what we already expect or reflected in the market.
That was Gary Ng, a financial analyst with Natixis based in Hong Kong. Taiwan is working to overcome political divides as it seeks to pass plans to help local companies cope with the U.S.'s new 32% tariff. The cabinet has put forward a $2.7 billion aid package, and it's now up to the opposition-led legislature to give it the green light. Joyce Zhang reports.
An emergency meeting led by Taiwan's premier, which includes the heads of all three major parties. The goal, to unite across the political spectrum and safeguard the economy against the U.S.'s new 32% tariff on Taiwanese goods. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te already ruling out reciprocal action in a video address to the nation.
台湾没有计划采取关税报复，企业对美国的投资承诺，只要符合国家利益，也不会有任何改变。
Lai has put forward a 5-measure plan to deal with the U.S. tariffs, including negotiations, setting zero tariffs as the basis, as well as a $2.7 billion support package for local firms, proposed by the cabinet. The challenge now, getting the plan approved by the opposition-led legislature, which has been mired in partisan spats that have even turned physical in some cases. Tensions between the ruling Democratic Progressive Party and the main opposition Kuomintang apparent in the latest meeting. The task of rallying everyone together falling on Premier Zhuo Rongtai. Before the closed-door meeting, Kuomintang's caucus whip Fu Quinqi called out Lai's government for not being more prepared for Trump's 32% tariff, pointing to money saved by the KMT-led budget cuts that went through months of political wrangling, now as a lifeline.
因为国民党把不必要浪费的这些中央总预算把它节约下来，这些钱现在可以做第一波对所有国内产业的振兴。
The ruling party spokesperson, Justin Wu, slamming the Kuomintang statement, saying the opposition's budget cuts have been weakening the central government's capabilities to respond to something like the U.S. tariffs. The ruling party now looking for all parties to set aside political differences, to face Trump's tariffs head-on and fulfill a tall order set by President Lai of, quote, a golden age of shared prosperity with the United States. Fu Hua Hong and Joyce Zin for TaiwanPlus.
Foreign ministers from the G7 group of nations have expressed, quote, deep concern about China's recent military drills around Taiwan. In a joint statement, they called for the peaceful resolution of cross-strait issues through constructive dialogue. The statement released on Sunday says China's increasingly frequent and destabilizing activities are putting global security at risk. Last week, China's military launched live fire and simulated blockade drills near Taiwan, involving more than 100 aircraft and a dozen naval ships. The last time G7 foreign ministers issued such a statement was in August 2022, when China launched live fire drills around Taiwan after then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited the country. Freedom should not be used to exterminate freedom. That was the message from President Lai Ching-te on Taiwan's Freedom of Speech Day. Lai's comments come after 3 Chinese spouses living in Taiwan had their residency permits revoked over social media videos supporting a Chinese takeover of the country. The president was speaking at a memorial service for the democracy activist Zheng Nanrong, who fought for 100% freedom of speech and died 36 years ago by setting himself on fire to resist arrest. The date of his death was later designated Freedom of Speech Day. In Pakistan, rising temperatures have led to water scarcity in some villages. But some farmers there have found an innovative way to tackle the problem. Chelsea Wu has the story.
The frost-covered valleys of Gov't in Pakistan, nestled at the base of K2, the world's second highest mountain. Farmers in this remote region are facing severe water shortages. To overcome this, they've come up with an innovative solution, building ice towers in winter.
जब से आइस टॉपर नहीं बना था उस वक़्त हम ज़राअत हम मई में करता था। जब से ये आइस टॉपर बना है हमने बारिश में ज़राअत किया है और 2-3 फसलें हम उगाते हैं अभी। पहले हम एक फसलें उगा के पानी की किल्लत की वजह से बैठते थे, अभी 2-3 हम उगा सकते हैं।
Warmer winters brought about by climate change have led to less snowfall and reduced seasonal snowmelt in the valley. With temperatures in Pakistan rising at twice the global average in recent decades, local villages find themselves on the front line of climate-related water scarcity. To keep their crops alive, farmers have turned to the internet to learn about other irrigation methods.
हमारे साथियों ने YouTube पर देखा था कि कोई लद्दाख से के जो है ना वांगचुक उसका नाम है, उसने जो है ना एक मैदान के ऊपर जो है ना एक छोटा सा जो है ना वो क्या कहते हैं मीनारे की तरह का जो है ना एक बर्फ जमा के जो है ना अपने यूनिवर्सिटी के लिए वो उसमें जो ना पानी की कमी को वो पूरा कर रहे थे। उसको देख के उसका देखी हमने यहाँ पर इसका शुरू किया।
The ice tower technique was developed about a decade ago. During the freezing winter months, water is piped in from nearby streams and sprayed into the air. This forms large cone-shaped ice structures that resemble Buddhist stupas. These frozen towers act as natural reservoirs, gradually melting in the spring to provide much-needed water as temperatures begin to rise.
That ice mount becomes a regular water source for early spring. जब तक ऊपर से ग्लेशियर पिघल के नहीं आता तो ये एक पानी का जरिया बन जाता है और इस तरह से जो है फसलें ठीक हो जाती हैं और ये बहुत सक्सेसफुल है। इस वक्त इंशाल्लाह लोगों की डिमांड भी बहुत ज़्यादा है।
More than 20 villages in Gov't have adopted the ice tower method. While the innovation offers a lifeline for farmers, uncertainty looms over how long they can withstand the mounting pressures of a rapidly changing climate. Scott Huang and Chelsea Wu for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more of our stories. Before we go, check out this newborn Malayan tapir cub in Spain. I'm Jeremy Olivier. Take care and see you next time.
For more stories from Peru and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.